Welcome everyone, this is AndresRestart, and today we have some potential good news because we have an update on a rumor about the supposed April Nintendo Direct, and that's what I would like to talk about today. But before going forward, let me point out that we are currently aiming for a goal of 40,000 subscribers, so if you do enjoy my content, please subscribe and hit that notification bell. So this update I think is actually fairly important because I've noticed a lot of people calling into question this idea of an April Nintendo Direct, which I think is totally valid. We should be skeptical of all rumors until proven. But even going beyond the normal levels of healthy skepticism here, many were starting to grow concerned because part of the rumor mentioned an Indie World possibly happening in March and then the Direct would happen in April. But as I talked about with that initial rumor, that wouldn't be necessarily the case. So initially, Brazil on Family Boards, who by the way is the same person who broke the story about the internal Switch 2 delay where every other site then afterwards shared similar information, this is what he said. Here's what I've heard post Friday. Direct in April, General or Mini, don't know. Indie World before that, probably March. June for Switch 2 reveal. Everything in flux, always, but I'm feeling good, so That was the initial rumor. And as you can see there, he said probably March, but that's not necessarily March. That was his speculation. He simply said that he heard Indie World would happen before the Direct in April. Also, by the way, while Brazil did not specify if it would be a general Direct, Necrofelipe from Universal Nintendo has. And now we have an update from Brazil. This was earlier today. Hey y'all, stepping in since I've received some DMs and since I was the one to volunteer all those dates over a month ago, even though I told myself I was out of the event date leak thing a couple years back. I was feeling good that week, shoot me. Here's the post from back then, we just talked about that. Here he says, I haven't talked to the Indie World source in a few weeks, reached out today, didn't get a response yet, but as far as I'm aware, that presentation could still happen in the time frame I was given. The April Direct is still a go as of last week, but please remember that the last Direct was delayed by a week, the week of, and be kind to Pioro, Necro, Nate, and whoever else decides to volunteer any further info. From my end at least, things only really start materializing in a solid way a week before the planned date. Until then, it's always up in the air, which is why I promise I won't talk about event dates anymore after these go down. Haha. So the biggest takeaway from this is that the initial source for the April Nintendo Direct rumor still believes it's happening in April as of last week. But beyond that, we're also hearing here that the source on the Indie World thing is separate from the Nintendo Direct source. So if one does not happen, it does not necessarily impact the other. But also, going back to the initial post, it was not promised for March. They simply made that assumption because they heard it was happening before a Direct. But the third takeaway here, and I'm really glad Brazil went into this because this is something that happens a lot, dates change around. There's always fluctuations. As we saw with the partner showcase, based off what Jeff Grubb said, based off what Pioro said, based off the contents of the partner showcase, and what we got with that Xbox podcast, the partner showcase was delayed because of the Xbox podcast. So when Necrofelipe, the owner of Universal Nintendo, put out the report of the Nintendo Direct date, they weren't wrong, that was apparently the initial planning, but it was delayed. So these things can happen, so when we're talking about dates, as Brazil goes into and how they don't really like getting into that kind of thing too often, there's so much potential fluctuation. That all said, my takeaway is, yeah, we're probably going to get some sort of indie showcase sooner or later. They tend to happen before bigger directs. I'm glad we're getting this update here and we're not hearing anything about any further delays about an April Direct, so that fills me with some good confidence. All under the assumption that Brazil is the legitimate insider, and I think they are privy to some good information considering that I haven't seen anything where they've gotten it blatantly wrong. They have said things that have been corroborated by others in the past, and they don't appear to be in this to be trying to gain some level of popularity. So it seems pretty reasonable, and really, I just think that we do need a Nintendo Direct for April. One might argue, well, we already know about Endless Ocean May 2nd, we already know about Paper Mario later in May, and then Luigi's Mansion 2 later in June. There isn't a need for a Direct until, say, June. But I would disagree somewhat there. One, it's not just about Nintendo published games. There's a whole bunch of third-party games that need to be discussed, and yes, we had the partner showcase, which helps with that, but there's always a need for more updates. But then specifically on Nintendo games, we don't know anything beyond June, and we can't realistically wait until June to start getting updates on what's coming later. Now, maybe Nintendo has some sort of announcement on social media before this possible June Direct, and that gives us a game for July, and so that gives them a little bit more of a window, but that hasn't happened yet. And then here's something else to take into consideration. We don't have anything for April yet. A few days ago, I talked about the possibility of us maybe getting a Shadow Drop game. I think the vacant month of April kind of positions us for something like that. Now, I will also speak on this idea that there doesn't necessarily have to be a Nintendo published title every single month. They can skip months, they have skipped months. There will be some months where it will just be the typical one game. There will be some months where there will be 2 games, and then there will be some months where there will be 0 games. But as a general rule of thumb, I tend to sort of expect an average of more than 12 Nintendo games per year. So that means that once everything is said and done, there will likely be more than 12 published games announced, and so typically we're going to expect at least 1 game per month, where 1 or 2 months may be missing, but then some other months there'll be a few games bunched in. Now, nothing here was mentioned about the potential Switch 2 reveal in June. If nothing has changed about the April Direct, I am inclined to think that nothing has changed about the Switch 2 reveal, but similar to how we noted that the indie world could change around and still not impact the Nintendo Direct, the Switch 2 reveal could change around without impacting the indie world or Nintendo Direct. And we also don't know what is meant by a Switch 2 reveal. Does that mean simply an announcement of its existence? Does it mean a trailer? There's some room for debate there. Recently, Nate the Hate on his podcast mentioned that he had heard that Nintendo is requesting footage for trailers from partners that are working on Switch 2. So this could perhaps be hinting at some type of presentation that Nintendo is putting together, be it a trailer or a direct of some kind. Those kinds of things would be really exciting to see, and maybe that's what the June reveal entails. But that's me looking at things optimistically. What I do think has a pretty good amount of likelihood, though, is us getting some type of social media announcement in the month of April or May. Because when we go back to 2016, in 2016, all the reputable outlets were reporting that Nintendo Switch would be coming out by holiday 2016, yet a few months into the year, that tune changed, the reports changed, there was an apparent internal delay. And we now know that that was the plan. Switch was supposed to come out holiday 2016 from actual Nintendo internal documentation, but it was delayed a few months. But what did happen is that Nintendo did announce that the NX would be launching March 2017. So that scenario sounds oddly familiar to what's going on now. We came into the year with all the outlets confidently saying Switch 2 would be out by the end of the year. Then all of a sudden, a few months in, something changed. Now we have this reported internal delay. And there have been mumblings of a Switch 2 reveal of some kind soon. With the investors meeting happening in early May, I'm thinking, yeah, we're likely going to get at least confirmation of its existence soon. Now, what does that say about a trailer or presentation? Well, that's not what we got summer 2016. But this is a different time, a different circumstance. Maybe things shake out a bit differently. So we'll see what actually happens. But for now, I'm at least excited thinking about the possibility that we could be getting a solid, good Nintendo Direct this April, which means we may just be a couple weeks away from a deluge of quality Nintendo information. But what do you all think? Let me know in the comments below. This is Andres Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.